पदकमलं श्रीगुरोन् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातां सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगणा ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधो दीनबंधो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिकान्त राधाकान्त नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचना गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna, thank you for joining today's session. We will be seeing chapter 3 and 4 of Canto 2 as much as possible. If we can start the 5th chapter, we will do. So, as we saw the last week, there are 3 major subsections of Canto 2. One, the first 3 chapters where the superiority of Bhakti Yoga is established by Shukadeva Goswami against various processes like Ashtanga Yoga, demigod worship, Jnana Yoga, and also the path of Karma Kanda. So he establishes the superiority of Bhakti Yoga about these processes in answer to the question of Parikshit Maharaj, what is to be chanted, heard, and remembered, especially by a person at the verge of death. After this, in continuing to answer the questions of Parikshit Maharaj, Shukadeva Goswami will discuss in the section 2 from chapters 4 to 7 about creation of this universe as well as the secondary creation done by Brahmaji in each universe. And in continuing to answer the questions of Parikshit Maharaj, he will speak about Chatushloki Bhagavatam and the 10 topics of Bhagavatam in the section 3 from chapters 8 to 10. So in this way, the second canto comes to a close. So we already saw the first 2 chapters of section 1, establishing the superiority of Bhakti Yoga over the process of Ashtanga Yoga. So in today's chapter 3, we will begin with. Chapter 3 is essentially going to establish the superiority of Bhakti Yoga over the process of demigod worship as well as Jnana Yoga. So the chapter 3 is titled Pure Devotional Service, the Change of Heart. And in this particular chapter, Shukadeva Goswami will be speaking about in the first 12 verses about the superiority of Bhakti Yoga over demigod worship. And then there will be some questions asked by Saunak Rishi to inspire Sita Goswami to speak more, not more of questions, more like an inspirational verses to inspire Shukadeva Sita Goswami to speak further on this topic. So this will be the major themes that we will be seeing in chapter 3, pure devotional service. So the question by Parikshit Maharaj in the first canto, at the end of the first canto, was what is the ultimate duty of every person, specifically one who is about to die. So this was the question which led to the beginning of the canto 2, where Shukadeva Goswami is beginning to answer. So initially he answers that bhakti is the best process, but because there are so many sages also in the attendance in his conversation with Parikshit Maharaj, he also explains the alternative paths and how they fall short when compared to Bhakti Yoga. So he speaks about the less intelligent process, that is aspiring for mukti through Ashtanga Yoga by the practice of meditating on Paramatma if the heart of the yogi is pure. If not, if the heart of the yogi is not pure, if he has material desires, then instead of Paramatma, he meditates on Virat Rupa. And that part of mukti is called as Krama Mukti because it is called gradual liberation. He visits different planetary systems and ultimately goes to Brahmaloka, and from there he gets liberated. So this is a roundabout path. That is why it is called as Krama Mukti. If somebody is meditating on Paramatma, he will directly into gets Brahman liberation through Shat Chakra Yoga. And Shukadeva Goswami says this is a less intelligent process. I personally prefer Bhakti Yoga, the path of worshipping the Supreme Lord directly by hearing, glorifying, and engaging and worshipping Him through His deity forms. So, this is a more intelligent path. This is what he concluded in the first two chapters. So, after this, now he was saying that now here are the activities of those who are not intelligent among men. So, we saw those who are intelligent, they practice bhakti. Those who are a little less intelligent, they practice Ashtanga Yoga. But now Shukadeva Goswami is going to speak about a third category of people who are not at all intelligent, unintelligent people. So there is intelligent, less intelligent, and no intelligence. So he's going to speak about the third category now. So the third category, which is less or no intelligent people, is basically demigod worship. So they think if they worship Brahma, they will get absorbed in impersonal Brahma Jyoti or dominion over others. If they worship Durga Devi, they will get good fortune. If they worship Uma, they will get good marital relationship. If they worship Lord Shiva, they will get vast learning. If they worship Indra, they'll have powerful virality. And in this way, if they worship Agni, they will get power. If they worship the Vasus, they'll get money. If they worship Rudra, they'll be a big hero. So in this way, they kind of worship different demigods for different purposes. And Shukadeva Goswami lists almost like 26 different demigods who are worshipped by the various reasons. And after explaining all this from verses 2 to 9, how different people worship different demigods for achieving different purposes, he says in the 10th canto, 10th verse, whether you are akama, desireless, or only desire to serve the Supreme Lord, who is a devotee, whether you are a devotee or whether you are sarvakama, whether full of desire, whether you are a karmi, or you are moksha kama. You have desire for liberation, which is essentially the path of jnanis and yogis. So whether you are akama or sarva karma or moksha kama, your desire should be to you should be performing tivra bhakti, means serious devotional service. So whatever you may be a devotee, you may be a karmi or a jnani or a yogi, but everyone's duty is to practice tivra bhakti. To whom? To the Supreme Lord Krishna. So that is why the famous verse which comes, Akamaha sarva kamova moksha kama udaradihi tivrena bhakti yogena yajeta purusha param. So anyone who is desiring, whether it is no desires or full of desires or desires for liberation, one should be worshipping seriously. Tivra Bhakti. Whoever is intelligent will practice Tivra Bhakti to Lord Sri Krishna. So in this way, by the practice of Bhakti Yoga, one can achieve all desirable things. So that's what Shukadeva Goswami mentions here. And Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur says, why in the series of Akama, Sarvakama and Moksha Kama, Moksha is kept at the end is it is even higher kind of a desire, more selfish desire than achieving worldly desires. Trying to be merged in liberation is much more of a selfish desire than just achieving sense gratificatory things in this world. So that's why he says Shukadeva Goswami has kept it at the end in the hierarchy of desires. Akama, no desires, full of desires, but Moksha Kama is even a higher level desire. So after explaining this, someone may ask, will the demigod worshippers naturally graduate to Tivra Bhakti? Means they worship so many demigods, so they achieve pious credits by worshipping the demigods. They accept someone superior. So in this way, will they gradually graduate to Tivra Bhakti? So Shukadeva Goswami says no. The only way a person can achieve bhakti or devotional service is through devotee association. Apart from devotee association, nothing can guarantee us obtaining the process of devotional service bhakti. Can only come from bhakti, which resides in the heart of another devotee. So only when we come across the association of devotees, can we actually become devotees, not by worshipping demigods for millions of lifetimes, not by executing any other processes for millions of lifetimes. It is only by the association of devotee, knowingly or unknowingly, that one can achieve bhakti. So Shukadeva Goswami explains, Etavan eva yajatam iha nishreyasha udayah bhagavati achalo bhavo yad bhagavata sangatana. Only in the association of devotees, Bhagavati achalo bhavo, means the mood to worship the Supreme Lord unflinchingly will arise. Nikshayasa udayah. So that which is the great good fortune will only arise in the association of devotees of worshipping the Supreme Lord, not by worshipping demigods for millions of lifetimes. So in this way, Shukadeva Goswami concludes how demigod worship is of no use. It only gives those temporary things which will perish with this body. So he says it is better to take to the path of bhakti by taking to the association of devotees. So someone may say, since somebody has very sincerely worshipped some other demigod for a long time, will he be actually able to develop devotion to Lord? Because he is already accustomed to worshipping some demigod very sincerely. Can he suddenly change to practicing devotion to the Supreme Lord? Is it possible? So Shukadeva Goswami answers in a very interesting way. He says, oh, even Gyanis take to bhakti. Why not demigod worshippers? So he says, even Gyanis who are much more higher on the platform when compared to demigod worshippers. Because who are demigod worshippers? Demigod worshippers are those people who aspire for some material benefit. But Gyanis have understood that the material world is temporary and wants to achieve something more transcendental. Even they take to bhakti. So what is people demigod worshippers? So that's why he explains through this verse, Jnanam yad apratinivrutta gunormi chakram. So what is jnana? The path of jnana stops the Gunormi Chakram, the effect of the modes. Atma Prasada gives self-satisfaction. Utayatra Gunesh Asangaha, it detaches one from the modes. Kaivalya Sammata Padas, it is transcendental path and it approved by authorities. Sammata Padas. To Atma Bhakti Yoga, even they take to Bhakti Yoga. Konivruto Harikata Ashu Ratimna Kurya. Who is that demigod worshipper who will not be attracted to Harikata Ashu, Harikata? So in this way, he says how even Gyanis are attracted to Bhakti. So in this way, he establishes the superiority of Bhakti over Jnana process as well as demigod worship. So he concludes at this point the answer to the question of Parikshit Maharaj, that what is the person who is supposed to do at the time of death, or in general, what is he supposed to hear, chant and remember? The simple thing is about Supreme Lord Krishna. Since there are various sages in that assembly who are either Karmakandi worshippers or demigod worshippers or Jnanis or Ashtanga yogis, he establishes the superiority of path of yoga over those other processes. And specifically, he speaks Ashtanga yoga in detail in chapter 1 and chapter 2. And ultimately, at the end of chapter 2, he establishes that bhakti is the best process. And in chapter 3, so far in the first 12 verses, he established how the process of demigod worship is lower than the process of bhakti, as well as Jnana Yoga is also lower than the process of bhakti. And in the chapter 2, he also established about bhakti yoga over karma kanda sacrifice. So in this way, he has concluded the answers for the question of Parikshit Maharaj. So the Saunaka Rishis or the sages headed by Shaunaka Rishi, they become uh, anxious that is Sutta Goswami going to stop the conversation because he has just Sutta Goswami has quickly answered all the questions. So is that Sutta Goswami is going to stop speaking? So they want to ask Sutta Goswami, they want to continue, they want Sutta Goswami to continue to speak. So they ask, what did Maharaj Parikshit inquire from Sutta Goswami? Please explain that. So because they know that Parikshit Maharaj and Shukadeva Goswami spoke for 7 days. So they asked, what did Parikshit Maharaj inquire from Shukadeva Goswami? Because it's a long time that they spoke, so you have just finished it in a very short time. So are there anything that more that Parikshit Maharaj asked or Shukadeva Goswami spoke in that conversation? So they asked that. And they also asked, you are very learned. and we are very eager to hear. So it's a great combination. You know what to speak, and we are very eager to hear whatever you speak. So please continue the Harikatha. Don't stop. We are here to hear you for a long time. And they say they now glorify Parikshit Maharaj. They say Parikshit Maharaj was a great devotee. Even in his childhood play was enacting Krishna's pastimes and worshipping the deities. So how can he be like just satisfied with few answers? He would have asked more about Krishna. We know because he was very attached to Krishna even from his childhood. So would you like to explain us more that Parikshit Maharaj asked Shukadeva Goswami? And they say Shukadeva Goswami was also a great devotee. He was so attached to Harikatha. We don't think he will stop so quickly. So please continue to explain what Shukadeva Goswami spoke to Parikshit Maharaj. And then they glorify what is the importance of Harikatha. They say the time actually runs with every rising and setting of the sun. Actually, the time takes away the life of living entities. Ayur harati vaikumsa mudyan nastam chayanaso tasyarte kshanonita uttama shloka. Those who don't engage in the topics of uttama shloka, the Supreme Lord, their lifespan is being stolen away by the setting and the rising of the sun. So they're just losing their lives with every day passing without engaging in the katha of Harikatha of Krishna. So please let us engage in speaking more about Krishna in that way. Let us utilize our life. They say, what is the use of living without speaking about Krishna? Do the trees not live? Do the bellows of blacksmith not breathe? Do the bees not eat and have sex? So, what is the use of engaging in the same animalistic activities like trees and animals after achieving the human form of life? So, let's hear. Now we have this great opportunity of your presence. Let's hear about Krishna more. They say animalistic people whose ears have never heard about Krishna are glorified by those people who are like dogs, pigs, camels, and donkeys. They're saying materialistic people glorify other materialistic people. But we want to glorify Krishna. We want to hear the glories of Krishna spoken by great devotees like Shukadeva Goswami and Parikshit Maharaj. Please don't stop, Shukadeva Goswami. Please continue to speak. And then now they are going to describe limb by limb the description of an animalistic person. So they are basically trying to establish the importance of devotional service to inspire Sukha Goswami to speak more. They say the ear holes of a person who does not hear about Krishna is like snake holes. Yeah, the holes of the snake holes where snakes live. And they say how the tongue of a person who does not sing about the Supreme Lord is like a tongue of a frog, which invites its own death. The head of a person who does not bow down before the Lord is like it's like having a crown crowned with turban. That crown is as good as like having carrying a heavy burden without worshipping or bowing down before the Supreme Lord. And the hands with glittering bangles, but if they are not engaged in the service of the Supreme Lord, they are as good as hands of a dead man, useful for nothing. And they say the eyes of a person who does not take darshan of the Lord is like the plumes of a peacock. The eyes are of no use. And they say the legs which does not move to the holy places is like tree trunks. And a person who does not receive the dust of devotees or aroma of the tulsi offered to the Supreme Lord is as good as a dead body. And the heart of a person after hearing the holy names, whose heart does not transform in ecstasy, that heart is steel framed. So in this way, he glorifies the Harikatha and inspires Sukha Goswami to speak more about Krishna to them. So after describing like this, he explains finally, please, therefore, Shukadeva Goswami, please, Sukha Goswami, please speak Harikatha that transpired between Shukadeva Goswami and Parikshit Maharaj. We are very eager to hear about that. Please continue to speak. So in this way, he concludes the chapter 3. So does anyone have any questions at this point?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, can you hear me?
Yeah. I got the
Prabhu, I had a question. So you said that pious activities one cannot elevate to worshipping Supreme Lord, right? But you need to have a devotee association to worship Supreme Lord. So does pious activities when accumulated for a long period give rise to a devotee association? So just want to understand how one gets devotee association, by pious activities or by just his intelligence.
Okay. There are different types of Sukruti. So there is one thing called Agyata Sukruti. When a person knowingly or unknowingly, specifically unknowingly, comes in touch with the devotees, appreciates the devotees, or somebody is passing by and says, "Oh, these Hare Krishna are good people." They take prasad, they take darshan of some devotees or deities, or unknowingly they perform some devotional service. Through that, they get some Sukruti. That is called Agyata Sukruti or Bhakti Unnati Sukruti, which is favorable for devotion service, because if it is was just a general pious credit, they will enjoy life. They will have better health, better looks, better wealth, better family, birth in a better family, or achieving heavenly planets like that. But those kind of sukriti cannot give a rise to devotion service. The specific kind of sukriti or pious credits which gives a rise to bhakti is called uh, Agyata Sukriti, Bhakti Unnati Sukriti. So that is performed in relation to devotees. Let's say a devotee walks around and then he falls, somebody helps them. So in this way, a devotee becomes a direct uh, vehicle or a medium for people to even achieve Agyata Sukriti. That is why we say devotees should behave in a such a way that general people can like them, appreciate them, and take their association gradually. So in this way, whoever knowingly or unknowingly contributes to sometimes offers prasad like donations for prasad for devotees in the temple, or sponsors some Bhagavad Gita, and in this way knowingly unknowingly engages in devotional service. They might have offered donation in any temple, but they offered probably to Krishna. So in this way gradually they come to a level where they can actually take to devotee association. Does this answer
Okay,
it?
Prabhu. Yep. Thanks, Prabhu.
So Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur speaks about this whole process in Madhurya Kanandani separately. How he explains what is the different types of Sukriti and how a person comes to the devotional service. So once a person has enough amount of Agyata Sukriti and comes in touch with a devotee, then immediately he will have faith. That is a sign. Immediately he will have little faith, and with that little faith, he will take more association, and through that association, he will engage in bhajana kriya. He will engage in the process of devotional service, and that's why gradually a person becomes devotee. Now we will see the chapter 4. The chapter 4 is essentially Sudha Goswami is going to explain what did Parikshit Maharaj ask to Shukadeva Goswami in the conversation further. And then Parikshit Maharaj is going to ask few questions, and Shukadeva Goswami, he actually kind of in the excitement or in the mood of trying to answer Parikshit Maharaj's questions and understanding the urgency of the situation, has not offered prayers to the Supreme Lord. He had offered prayers, mm, not like specific prayers actually to the Supreme Lord or to the spiritual master. So in this chapter, he realizes that he actually began to speak without offering any invocation. So now he will specifically offer an invocation in this chapter from verses 11 to 25. So let us look into this chapter. So Suta Goswami describes that what happens next. Basically, Parikshit Maharaj focused on the words of Shukadeva Goswami, and because those words actually helped him discern the truth about the soul, so he becomes fully established in that conception, and then he develops detachment from the knowledge that he received from Shukadeva Goswami. Basically, he says, I give up my attachment to body, wife, sons, house, animals, wealth, friends, kingdom, and completely renounces everything, including dharma, artha, and kama, and then becomes fully fixed in his natural love for Krishna. He inquires Shukadeva Goswami. So, what does he inquire? That's what we will see next. From verses 5 to 10, Parikshit Maharaj asks questions. So, in the first four verses, Sudha Goswami explained the mindset of Parikshit Maharaj. How was he feeling after hearing all these answers from Shukadeva Goswami? So he got completely fixed in the conception of soul, and then he feels completely detached and renounced, and then completely fixed in the natural love for Krishna. He is asking more questions. What are those questions? he first glorifies Shukadeva Goswami. Shukadeva Goswami, you're knower of everything, you're sinless, and your speech is exact, just the right thing. You say that just the right thing a person wants to hear, and it dispels my ignorance completely. So in this way, I'm feeling fully enlightened. So please, I know I want to hear more about Krishna's qualities, form and pastimes, but I also would like to hear more of the Lord's pastimes in relation to how into this material world. How does he create this material world? So and after knowing that, I think I can ask more about pastimes like Govardhan Leela, which are performed by his Chit Shakti. So now let me understand how does he create this material world, and then how does the Maya Shakti work? So specifically he asks in the verse 6, how does the Lord create this universe through his energies? And he also says, how does the Lord maintain and destroy this universe? And he says, what is the process of primary creation and what is the process of secondary creation that I had heard? So he says, the Lord's activities are wonderful and inconceivable. And even great people cannot understand the Supreme Lord easily. Only by hearing from devotees like you, a person can understand, not by his own intelligence. So please speak about Krishna. So he speaks this famous verse, Nunam Bhagavato Brahman Hare Adbhuta Karmanaha Durvibhavyam Iva Bhati Kavivis Chapi Cheshtitam. This is Nunam Bhagavato Brahman. So who can understand the Supreme Lord? Hare Adbhuta Karmana. That Supreme Lord is Hare Adbhuta Karmana. He performs wonderful activities. And his activities are Durvibhavyam, inconceivable, not very easy to understand. Iva Bhati Kavibis Chapi Cheshritam. Even for greatly intelligent people, they cannot, maybe they are intellectuals, but still they cannot understand the activities of the Supreme Lord. Only by hearing it from great devotees like you, we will be able to understand the Supreme Lord's activities of creation, maintenance, and destruction. So please speak to us about that. He says that I know that the Supreme Lord, as one Purusha, as Karano Dakshai Vishnu, supports primary and secondary creation. Does this happen simultaneously or does that happen in sequence? How does this happen? So he knows already about creation, so he is asking these things because he already has idea that creation is done in a but as primary and secondary and Karanodakshai Vishnu is the support for all these things. So he is asking, how does that happen though? I know this that he is the reason for this, but how does it happen? So he says that you have mentioned that the subject matter is very difficult even for wise people to understand. So how do you think I can answer it? Shukadeva Goswami says things like that. He says, no, you are actually an expert in discerning the scriptural truths. You are not any ordinary person and you have fully realized Krishna. That is your qualification. So you say, so since Parikshit Maharaj said in the 8th verse that even great intelligent people cannot understand Krishna, Shukadeva Goswami might think, oh, how do I understand? So Parikshit Maharaj says, no, you have already realized Krishna, and by Krishna's grace, you know all the scriptural truths. Therefore, you are qualified to clear my doubts. So in this way, Parikshit Maharaj specifically asked about the creation of the material universe, the destruction of the material universe, the maintenance of the material universe, and also in relation to creation, primary and secondary creation. How does that happen? Does it happen simultaneously or does it happen in sequence? So in this way, he asked these technical questions in these 6 verses. So we are in chapter 4, where Shuddha Goswami described Parikshit Maharaj's internal situation after hearing Shukadeva Goswami speak for these first 3 chapters. And now Parikshit Maharaj is continuing to ask. He is very grateful. He feels enlightened. He wants to hear more about creation of the material world, pastimes of the Supreme Lord in relation to his Maya Shakti, before hearing about the Supreme Lord's pastimes in relation to his Chit Shakti, the spiritual pastimes. So he's saying, specifically, I want to know about the creation of the universe, maintenance and destruction of the universe, and in elaboration about the creation of the material universe. So these are the questions that Parikshit Maharaj has asked. So now that he has requested Shukadeva Goswami to speak, so Shukadeva Goswami is beginning to speak. So before he speaks, the 5th chapter, he goes on to glorify the Supreme Lord. He offers prayers. He says, Shukadeva Goswami says, I offer my humble obeisances to you, the Supreme Lord. and he explains how that the Supreme Lord accepts the three modes, and in this way he offers the complete. He is the shelter for all the living entities, and he says, "You destroy the suffering of the devotees. You are the form of Shuddha Sattva. Only Paramahamsas can understand you, and you are the associates of Yadus, and you are the enjoyer of the material and spiritual worlds, and you possess unsurpassable and unequaled opulences." And then he states these very famous verses: Yat kirtanam, yat smaranam, yadikshanam, yad vandanam, yat shravanam, yadarhanam. Lokasya sadyo vidunoti kalmasham, tasmai shubhatra shavase namo namah. He says, Krishna is, I offer my respectful obeisances to the Supreme Lord Krishna, about whom glorification, remembrance, audience, prayers, hearing, and worship can at once cleanse all the sinful activities of everyone. He says, just by remembering about of this Supreme Lord, one can actually be completely purified of all sinful reactions. So I remember and worship that Supreme Lord. He also says how by surrendering unto the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, one is relieved of all attachments to the present and future existence and progresses towards the spiritual world. And he also uses this famous verse, Tapasvino dana para yashasvino manasvino mantravida sumangala kshemam na vindanti vinaya darpanam tasmai shubhadra shavase namo namah. He says, whoever possesses whatever they possess, they cannot achieve any result without offering those things to the Supreme Lord. Only when we dedicate whatever we have to the Supreme Lord, then those things can turn to be auspicious for us. So he says, whatever it may be Gyanis, Karmis, Yogis, scholars, they may have wealth, austerities, or knowledge, or their devotion. Everything should be offered to the Supreme Lord for those things to actually be meaningful. And then he says, people even of very sinful backgrounds can be purified by taking shelter of the devotees of the Supreme Lord. He says, Kiratahunandra Pulinda Pulkasha Avira Shambhaya Vanakasadaya Yannecha Papaya Dapashraya Shuddhanti Tasmai Prabha Vishnave Namah. So he says, only by taking shelter of the Supreme Lord and the devotees, even where people with sinful backgrounds can be completely purified and achieve spiritual work. So in this way, he glorifies the Supreme Lord with various prayers. He also quotes how the Supreme Lord is the ultimate master. He is the protector of prosperity, sacrifice, intelligent people, the planets, the earth. So in this way, he glorifies, offers all these prayers, and begs for the blessings of the Supreme Lord. And also he offers his respectful obeisances unto his spiritual master Vyasadeva. He says, my obeisances to Vyasadeva, the incarnation of Vasudev, who compiled the Vedic scriptures. Devotees drink the nectar of Krishna's topics, dropping from the Lord's mouth. So he says, this Vyasadeva, who is my spiritual master, from his mouth, the nectar of Krishna's glories actually spill. And actually, devotees are eager to take that nectar, drink that nectar, basically hear the Krishna Katha which Vyasadeva is speaking. So in this way he is saying, I offer my obeisances to Vyasadeva, and he says, now, O Parikshit Maharaj, you have asked very nice questions about the creation, maintenance, and destruction of this material universe. The same topic was also discussed by Lord Brahma and Narada Muni. Once, Narada Muni visited Brahmaji and asked the same questions about creation. So you are asking those same questions. So I will quote that conversation, what that happened between Brahmaji and Narada Muni, and answer your questions through that conversation. So now, Suta Goswami and Saunakadi Rishis are speaking in the forest of Naimisharanya about the conversation of Parikshit Maharaj and Shukadeva Goswami. In that conversation of Shukadeva Goswami and Parikshit Maharaj, they are going to speak about another conversation that happened between Brahmaji and Narada Muni. So that is the context for the next chapter. So Shukadeva Goswami is going to answer about creation of this universe by the Supreme Lord through quoting the conversation between Narad Muni and Brahmaji. So once Narad Muni goes to Brahmaloka, the residence of Brahmaji, and there he requests Brahmaji, he sees Brahmaji is meditating. So after that, requesting his permission, Narad Muni speaks to Brahmaji and asks certain questions. So we will see those questions in the first 8 verses of chapter 5, which is entitled The Cause of All Causes. And in reply to Narada's questions, Brahmaji will start speaking from the verse 9. And in the first 5 to 6 verses, he speaks about his own position, because Narada Muni asked that his position also, who are you? And he specifically answers, because 6 questions are asked by Narada Muni in the 8 verses. He speaks about answers to certain questions in 14 to 20 and the rest of the chapter. So I don't think we will be able to see all the questions and answers of the whole chapter 5 today. So I will just begin the chapter and we will stop at 8:15 wherever we are, and we will continue the next week. So does anyone have any questions up until this point? We can take, or else we can continue. Okay. So we continue with the questions by Narada Muni. So just to put the context again, Parikshit Maharaj asked about the creation of the universe primarily to Shukadeva Goswami. So Shukadeva Goswami is trying to answer the questions of Parikshit Maharaj by quoting another conversation that happened between Narada and Brahma. So where Narada Muni asked Lord Brahma about literally kind of the same questions about the universe, creation of the universe in specific. So Narada Muni visits Brahmaji in Brahmaloka, and he sees Brahmaji is meditating. So he requests his permission to ask some questions. He says, "Oh Lord Brahma, you know everything. So please tell me that transcendental knowledge which specifically directs one to the truth of the individual soul and the super soul." He says, "Speak about the knowledge which deals with the soul and super soul." And then he asks 6 questions about the universe. He says, "What are the symptoms of the universe? What is its shelter? What is the process of creation? How is this material world created? It looks so fabulous. What is the process that this material world is created through? And how is this universe conserved? How is it protected and destroyed? And what it depends on? Who is its shelter? What is it composed of? What are the ingredients of this universe?" So can you please explain these questions of mine? And he also says, "I ask you these questions because I know you know everything. Because you know everything about this creation, because everything created in the past, present, and future is within your grip like a walnut. If you hold a walnut in your hand, you can clearly see that. Like that, you know everything about the creation because you know the past, present, and future of this creation. So please explain to me about this creation." And he says, "You're also independent. I think you're the supreme independent Lord. Yeah, I only see you as the highest being in this universe. So I think you are the supreme Lord. So please explain to me." And he says, "You are self-sufficient. How a spider brings out the substance to create a web from its own mouth and stays in that. And when he wants to wind up the web, he again takes it all back inside himself. So in this way, you create this universe and you are also self-sufficient." So this is how Brahmaji says. Narada Muni explains about Brahmaji, and then he says, "I think I know no other source who is a creator or maintainer of this universe who is superior to you. But I have a doubt. If all I said is true, if you are the independent, you know everything, you are self-sufficient, and I don't see any other source higher than you, then who are you meditating upon? Why are you performing these austerities? If you are the greatest being, then why you have to perform any austerities? Ghor tapa, he says, you do intense austerities. So, is there anybody who is more powerful than you, that towards whom you are performing these austerities to gain the favor of that person you are performing these austerities? Who is that person? Please explain. So, in this way, Narada Muni asks these questions to Brahmaji. So, Brahmaji, as a sincere devotee, first of all explains the doubts of Narada Muni before explaining his questions. So, the doubt was, is he the supreme? So, Narada Muni says, Thank you, Brahmaji says, thank you, Narad Muni, for your nice questions. That I'm able to meditate because of your questions. I'm remembering the Supreme Lord Narayan's prowess, how he has helped in this creation, maintenance, and destruction of this universe. In this way, your questions are helping me to remember that Supreme Lord Narayan. So thank you for that, asking such nice questions. And he says, you have to know the Supreme Lord's position. Uh, unless one knows the Supreme Lord's position, who is equal, even beyond me, who is above me, one will get completely illusioned by the powerful activities that I perform. He says, if one does not know that there is the Supreme Lord who exists, then just by seeing my activities, they will think I am actually a Supreme Person. So that is why please understand the position of the transcendental Supreme Lord who is beyond this material creation. He says that Supreme Lord manifests unlimited, innumerable number of universes from his force of his body. I only recreate what he has already created within one universe. But there are unlimited number of universes that comes out of his bodily force. I am only the secondary creator within one universe, not even all the universes, just one universe. And that too, I recreate what he has already created. The universe comes out of him. I just have to do some few things which he has already produced from the ingredients that he has already manifested. So in this way, I only recreate what the Supreme Lord has already created. But people who are bewildered by the material energy consider me as supreme. They think because I create the secondary creation, they think I am the Supreme Lord, but it is false. I offer my obeisance as the Supreme Lord, by whose Maya, by whose external energy, people call me actually the Supreme Controller of this universe. Actually, I am not the Supreme Controller of this universe. So in this way, Brahmaji says, and then says that concludes how only people with the conception of me and mine, they get bewildered by the energy of external energy and they talk nonsense. But that Maya, the external energy, cannot stand in front of the Supreme Lord, being ashamed of uh, her position. She only can bewilder the living entities. She cannot bewilder the Supreme Lord. And I'm also included in this category who is within this material creation. But the Supreme Lord, the difference is he cannot be bewildered by Maya. He is above. He is transcendental. That is his great position. So please understand his great position and understand me as a subordinate to the Supreme Lord who only recreates the material, this particular universe. Within this particular universe, I recreate what the Supreme Lord has already created. So in this way, Brahmaji actually explains, the first clarifies the doubts of Narada Muni, and then he goes on to establishing the answers to Narada Muni's questions. What are the 6 questions he asked? He asked, what are the symptoms of the universe? Well, who's the shelter of this universe? What is the process of creation? How is it maintained and destroyed? And what does it depend on? And what is it composed of? What are the ingredients of this universe? So in this way, he asked 6 questions. So first of all, Narada Muni's doubts were clarified for Brahmaji about who is the Supreme. So because he had that question, are you the Supreme? I see you only as the Supreme authority within this universe. Is there anybody else? I don't see anyone else. So if you are the Supreme, then why are you meditating? Why are you performing these intense austerities, both up? So then Brahmaji answered in the previous section how the Supreme Lord is transcendental. I only recreate what he has already created. In this way, he establishes the position of the Supreme Lord superior to himself and thus clarifying the doubts of Narada. Now he is going to answer the question of 6 questions of Narada Muni that he asked in the second verse of this chapter. So the first question was Yadrupam. What is the symptoms of this universe? So he is explaining how there are 5 components as the symptoms of this universe. The 5 components are the living entity, first of all, and the living entity comes with its karma and swabhav. The living entity has certain karma and certain swabhav due to the karma that it had acquired. And for that karma and swabhav to act, it needs time. Material universe is run by the time energy of the Supreme Lord. So Kala. And okay, there is time and then there is the living entity, but you need the material ingredients for the living entity to exploit. So the dravya, the material ingredients, all these five are the symptoms of the universe, but all the five actually depend upon Vasudeva. So because Jiva is only the like an expanded parts and parcel of the Supreme Lord. The time is also energy of the Supreme Lord. The material energy, dravya, is also energy of the Supreme Lord. Karma and Swabhava are all gathered by the Jiva, but they are reminded by, they are assigned life after life, they are reminded in the form of Paramatma, tying the particular karma and Swabhava to a Jiva, to the energies of the Supreme Lord Vasudeva. In that way, he is the truth ultimately. Everything is based upon him. So, in this way, he explains what is the symptoms of the universe, and he says what is the shelter of the universe and who is the universe dependent on. He says how the Supreme Lord Narayan is the source of all Veda, he is the source of all Devatas, he is the source of all knowledge, he is the ultimate goal, he is the source of all planets, all austerities, all sacrifices, and yoga. So in this way, he explains how Lord Narayan is the shelter of whatever you see in this universe that is worth taking shelter of. And everything is dependent upon the Supreme Lord, like the Veda, Devatas, Loka, Makha, Yoga, Tapa, Jnana. Everything is dependent on Narayana, and he is the shelter of this universe. So in this way, he explains the answer to question 2 and 5, that what is the shelter of this universe and on what does this universe depend on. So in this way, he explains that. So the title has not been changed. So in the 17th verse to 20th verse, Brahmaji speaks about the difference between Jiva Tattva and Vishnu Tattva. He explains who is the Supreme Lord and who is he. He says, I am also created by him. I am a living entity. I was also created by the Supreme Lord. Under his supervision and inspiration, I perform whatever I do. But the Supreme Lord existed before all creation. He is Aja, he is unborn. But I was born at a particular time from the Supreme Lord. He says, the Lord accepts the three gunas, and through this Maya Shakti, he creates, maintenance, and destroys this material universe. Just for the sake of helping the conditioned souls, he manifests all this material manifestation, creates it, maintains it, and destroys it through the help of his Maya Shakti. He's not affected by it. He just engages the Maya Shakti in this process to help the conditioned souls. So the gunas may bind the jiva, the living entities, but the material modes cannot bind the Supreme Lord. He says the gunas manifest as matter, knowledge, and activities, putting the conditioned soul under bondage and illusion. But the same three modes cannot affect the Supreme Lord because he is above the three modes, he is transcendental. And he says the jiva cannot see the Supreme Lord because his eyes are covered by the gunas. Like if you compare the Supreme Lord to be sun, the clouds cover the sun, we say, but actually the clouds can only cover our eyes from the seeing the sun. It cannot cover the sun actually. The sun actually exists uncovered by the beyond the sky, beyond the clouds. It is we whose our eyes are covered by the clouds. Similarly, the modes cannot cover the Supreme Lord like the clouds, like cannot cover the sun. Rather, the modes cover our eyes, our ability to see the Supreme Lord, like the clouds cover our eyes from seeing sun. So in this way, Brahmaji says that how he is not the Supreme Lord, he is also a living entity who is under the three modes, but the Supreme Lord is above the three modes, he is transcendental. So, and he will continue from verses 21 in this chapter, and he will speak about the important topic of creation of the universe, which is very technical. Probably next week we will see in detail just this section of creation of the universe, because there is a lot going on there. We only have few minutes left now. So he will be explaining about creation of the universe, and in this also there are two steps to the creations of the universe, because generally people think, oh, the creation came from Big Bang or from specifically from Big Bang. The general famous theory is everything came from a Big Bang or from an unknown energy source or black holes, and so many theories are there in the modern world. But what does Bhagavatam say? From where the universe was, who created this universe? How does this process of creation of the universe happen? So it's very interesting to see how Srimad Bhagavatam addresses this topic against the popular opinions of scientific community, specifically the Big Bang theory. So we will see how does these things fall in place. So Srimad Bhagavatam explains how this universe is created by Mahavishnu from his bodies, and then the Mahavishnu enters as Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. And specifically, how does this manifestation of these universes from the body of Mahavishnu happen? What are the steps? So that we will see in this section. So that is called two steps. From the verses 21 to 35, we will see the answer for this question of creation of universe. The question 3, Yataha Srishtam. How does this Srishti happen? How does this creation of the universe happen? There are two steps. From verses 21 to 31, we will see Karana Srishti. And from verses 32 to 35, we will see something called as Karya Srishti. Karana Srishti means first the elements are created, the different elements like earth, water, air, fire, ether, the mind, intelligence, the devatas. In this way, all the elements of the material universe are all first created. That is called Karana Srishti, the elemental creation. After that, all of them have to be put together. They have to come together and start working. So that particular aspect of bringing all the ingredients and making them into universe, functional universe, that is called Karya Srishti. So creation of the working aspect of the universe, putting together the elemental creation, putting together the elements. So that is called as Karya Srishti. So next week we will see how the Karana Srishti happens. How does the Supreme Lord manifest these universes from his bodily force? And then how does this Karya Srishti happen? How does the Supreme Lord, how does these different elements which are created by the Supreme Lord come together and become a universe and manifest the universal functions? So in this way we will see these aspects of creation next week. How does the Big Bang relate to this aspect of creation account which is spoken by Srimad Bhagavatam? So far today we started with chapter 3, that Shukadeva Goswami spoke against the process of demigod worship. He spoke how the demigod worshippers worship different demigods for different aspects of life to achieve different things. But the best thing is to worship the Supreme Lord, whether you are Akama Sarvakamo va Mokshakama Udaradihi Tivrena Bhakti Yogena Yajeta Purusham Param. So if you are intelligent, one has to worship the Supreme Lord through Bhakti Yoga and can achieve everything. Whether you have material desires, whether you don't have any material desires, or even if you have that desire of merging in liberation, whatever it is, all your desires actually can be fulfilled by the Supreme Lord Krishna if we worship the Supreme Lord with full seriousness through the process of Bhakti Yoga. So he encourages everyone to engage in the process of Bhakti Yoga. And he says now just by worshipping demigods, no one can come to the path of Bhakti. Only by the association with devotee one can achieve the path of Bhakti. Even Gyanis take to Bhakti. So what to speak of demigod worshippers? They can easily transition to worshiping the Supreme Lord. And then the sages of Naimisharanya, the sages headed by Shaunak Rishi, had this doubt. Is Shukadeva Goswami answered all his questions of Parikshit Maharaj? So is he going to stop speaking? So they inquire, oh, what did Parikshit Maharaj ask more? What did Shukadeva Goswami speak? They are great devotees. We know they spoke more about Krishna. So what is the use of life without hearing Harikatha? So in this way, they glorify the position of Harikatha and they actually chastise the persons who does not engage in devotion service. And then they ask, what did Parikshit Maharaj ask more? So Suta Goswami says, actually Parikshit Maharaj was very satisfied with the answers of Shukadeva Goswami. He felt very enlightened and he was very happy and he asked more questions, specifically about the creation of the universe. So Shukadeva Goswami, he remembered he has to offer prayers to the Supreme Lord and to his spiritual master Vyasadeva. So he offers prayers in 15 verses of the chapter 4. And after offering his prayers to the Supreme Lord, who is the ultimate purifier and protector and the shelter of all living beings, and glorifying his spiritual master Vyasadeva. He begs their permission and speaks to Parikshit Maharaj. Oh, Parikshit Maharaj, you asked amazing questions, specifically about the creation of the universe. So, the same topic was spoken about by Brahmaji in response to the questions asked by Narada Muni once. So let me quote that same conversation that happened between Brahmaji and Narada Muni. So he quotes that conversation saying, Narada Muni asked, can you speak about the knowledge which establishes a person about the soul and the super soul? And also 6 questions about the universe. What are the symptoms of the universe? What is its shelter? What is it dependent upon? How is it created? What is the process of the creation of the universe? What is it composed of? How is it destroyed and maintained? So in this way, he asks these questions about universe, and he says, "I think Brahmaji, I don't know anybody who's higher than you who can answer these questions to me. You are the person who knows the past, present, and future. You are independent. You are fully in control of this creation. So I think you are the supreme. But I also have a doubt. If you are the supreme, why are you performing this austerity? Is there anybody who is supreme to you?" So Brahmaji answers, yes, the Supreme Lord Krishna, who is transcendental to this material universe, is superior to everyone, including myself. Those people who are bewildered by the Maya energy think that I am supreme, but actually the Supreme Lord is beyond the three modes, that's why they cannot see him. Their eyes are covered by the three modes, like the clouds cover the eyes of the sun. And then he says, let me explain how what is the symptoms of this universe, how Krishna is, everything is coming from Krishna, and Vasudev Narayan is the Adhishtanam, is the shelter of this universe, and the whole universe is dependent upon him. And let me now explain about the creation of the universe. How does the Karana Srishti and Karya Srishti happen? So Brahmaji says, from verses 21 to 31, he will explain how the elemental creation happened, how the various elements are created, and then how everything is put together. So these two topics called as Karana Srishti and Karya Srishti, the elemental creation and the uh, creating or the cohesive creation of these elements will be seen next week as spoken by Brahmaji to Narada Muni. So see you all next week. Thank you very much. Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. And it's 8:15. If any of you have questions, we can take at this point, or else we can conclude the session for today. Tomorrow, next week, the same time, Monday, 7:30 to 8:15, we will see how is the creation of the universe happen. What does Brahmaji answer Narada Muni? How does it relate to Big Bang theory? So these questions we will see next week. Thank you for joining. Very grateful for this opportunity. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram. Thank you all. If you have any questions, we can take, or else we can close the session. Thank you. So,
Thanks, Prabhu.
thank you. No question. We close this session today.